You are listening to Smart Women's Dating Podcast, episode number 22. Welcome to Smart Women's Dating Podcast. I am your host, certified life coach Lærke Nielsen, and I help smart, independent women attract the love they deeply desire without having to chase or settle. This podcast will give you the mindset tools and insights you need to finally crack the code to your love life. Are you ready? Then let's go. Hey friend, welcome back to the podcast. Today I will share with you my own love journey and the shift that I made that allowed me to attract my partner. And I'll also share my reflections on what I think meeting him could have looked like if I didn't make those shifts, sort of the new me versus the old me, so you can see the difference. But before I do that, I want to invite you to give me a review if you like this podcast. Then go to Apple Podcast and write me a review, and if you want to give me 5 stars, that would be amazing. Then each month I will offer a free power coaching session of 30 minutes to one of you, and I'll announce the winner here on the podcast. So back to my story and how I met the man of my dreams. I'm just going to give you some context. In 2019, I had a dream come true. I had a chance to move to Paris with my job. And at the time, I was in a long-term relationship that had also been long distance for a couple of years. So whether I lived in Copenhagen or in Paris, that was less important for the relationship. So I moved here, and then in September 19, I started listening to the Life Coach School podcast, and that was the beginning of a whole new way of thinking and living for me. Before that, I had no clue what a life coach was. But when I started listening to the podcast and applying the tools that I learned, it led me to make some big life-changing decisions. And from September 19 to September 20, that's what I would call my big year of change, because I made some really big changes. First of all, I ended the 10-year-long relationship with my ex. And I would say that it was in many ways a successful relationship, but we had some issues that we just couldn't solve in spite of having tried many times, and the long distance didn't help us either. So we both agreed that this was the right decision. Then I also decided I wanted to stay longer in Paris than what my contract allowed. I was actually supposed to go back to Copenhagen after 11 months, but I wanted to stay, so I found a new job on a local contract and a new flat here in Paris. And then finally, I also decided to become a life coach. I signed up in March 2020 for coach training and I got certified in September. So I became single, I moved to another country, and I changed my career, all within 1 year. And this was also the year I turned 50, and it was the year the pandemic started, so a lot of things happened in that 1 year. So in early 2020, I found myself to be single again at 49 and living in Paris without being fluent in French. I had a decent level, I would say, but I was definitely not fluent. And I had a ton of mind drama about being single again at 49. At that time, I felt really old. I dreaded going back to dating. And I also felt like a failure having yet another relationship that ended. Even if I knew it was the right decision, it still felt like I had failed in relationships. And then my next train of thoughts would be around who was even left out there. Now the good ones are for sure gone. So is it gonna be only the old, grey and tired men? Couch potatoes who just want to watch Netflix every night. Not that there's anything wrong with watching Netflix, but I just don't want to do that every night, and I had a deep fear of ending up in a relationship I would be bored with. So a friend of mine told me to open a dating profile, and I knew about online dating from the past, but dating apps on the phone and the swiping culture, that was a whole new thing to me. So I opened a profile and I got really surprised because in the first 3 to 4 days, I think I had over 2,000 likes or match requests on my profile, and it almost stressed me out. But I started going out, and in the beginning, I had a lot of fun. I wasn't specifically looking for a serious commitment. I had the approach of wanting to rediscover dating and what it meant to me at a more mature age and in a foreign country. And then if something was to develop into a serious relationship, that was just fine. Anyways, I dated on off for about 9 months in between the lockdowns, and it was all with men that I met in the dating apps. I had a short relationship with one of them, but that was only 3 months and never with the intention of getting serious. I met 13 men in total during that time, and I know the exact number because I tracked it. I made screenshots of their profile pictures and saved them on my phone. And I felt a bit like a teenager when I did this, but today I actually think it's a good idea. I recommend that you track your dates because we can easily tell ourselves that we tried really hard and we've gone on many, many dates. And then when we track it, we can see that maybe it's only 3 or 5. And I also just had fun with it. It gave me a boost in confidence and reminded me that I wasn't too old after all. But then, after about 7 months, I got a bit tired of this dating for fun and I wanted a deeper and more meaningful connection. But that just didn't seem possible to me. Typically, the men I was chatting with, they were extremely busy. Week after week, they were not able to meet, they only wanted to text, or they would disappear for 2 weeks and then come back and wanting to meet up the same day. Or they would just completely disappear in the middle of a conversation. And when I finally got to meet someone, they were actually quite nice guys, but I felt no attraction on the first date and I thought I was supposed to. And when they also didn't invite me for a second date, nothing really happened. At some point, I was sure this was because I was a foreign woman. I had never experienced guys who were that eager to just text and never go on a date, for instance. I know now, of course, that this is a thing, but back then I thought it was because I was their backup choice and they were more interested in dating French women. I also had the idea that I would never be more than a casual fling to them because I was a foreigner and they would think, what if she wants to go back home all of a sudden? And then on top of that, I worried that the language barrier could be a problem for creating a deeper connection. So at some point, I noticed that I just wasn't having fun anymore. Every time I opened the apps, I felt that I saw only shitty profiles, and I didn't find any decent looking or interesting men at my age. But at the same time, I also saw around me other women my age going on dates, meeting nice men, and having a great time dating, and also foreign women. So, you know, the situation where you notice everything is pointing in the same direction and there is a common denominator to all your problems. And you start thinking, could it be me? I was in coach training at the time and I had enough awareness to see that I had to work on my mindset, but I also just needed a break. So I ended up taking a break of a bit over a year. And it was not only because I needed a break, but with the pandemic, everything was more or less closed and it was more challenging to date. So I just decided to focus on my business for a while. And in the beginning of my coaching career, I was a breakup coach and I would take my clients through this process where we look at all the past relationships to get the learnings and identify the patterns that they wanted to change. And of course, I thought I'm going to do this myself. I'm going to do it both on past relationships and dating. And at the time, I was 50 and I've been around the block a few times, so I had 9 relationships and a lot of dating in between. So this was an interesting exercise because looking at it from a distance and with my coach background, it gave me more insight than what I had expected. And I realized that there were 3 things I wanted to shift. First of all, I wanted to be more true to my authentic self when dating. Not try to be mainstream or try to impress a man or hide what makes me special and unique, but allow him to see me as I am. Because I wanted to attract someone who was all in on me and with who I could share all my ideas and thoughts and who would resonate with that. And authenticity takes both courage and self-love, so that was the work I had to do. Then I also wanted to be more conscious about my energy because I had realized that I'd been a lot in this kind of masculine overfunctioning energy. And this would look like taking a lot of initiative, organizing, wanting to be in charge and make all the decisions, but also overgiving and over-independent. And this made it difficult for me to receive or let a man help me with anything. These patterns did not serve me. It often made me feel like I was the only one rowing the boat, both in relationships and dating. And I also didn't give much space for a man to show up for me because I wasn't open to receive. So my new dating philosophy based on these insights would be to never chase, only attract, which meant show up as my true self. Back up with taking all this initiative in the beginning. Let the man come to me and trust that if it's a good match, I don't have to push or try to control things to move in a certain direction. It will happen naturally. Then the third insight I had was that I had never really asked myself what I wanted in a relationship and what kind of man I would like to attract. I think I had at some point just decided that I just had to accept whatever was available to me and that I wasn't allowed to want something. But then I asked myself, what if I could have what I wanted? Then what kind of man would I want? What kind of relationship would I want? And I knew I was going to want someone who had an open and curious mind, who was funny, adventurous, and courageous, and definitely someone who wanted to go out and experience the world and not lie on the couch every night. And of course, I wanted him to be loving and kind as well. So that's what I worked on in my time out, and then I felt like going back and start dating again. And I did a lot to put myself out there. Also, some things that were a bit outside of the comfort zone. First of all, I signed up for 2 different dating apps, and then I signed up for speed dating and several single events and also expat events. And I made sure to go out with my single friends every time I had the possibility. I was also just eager to get out of my flat. Everything had been closed down and restricted with the lockdowns and the curfews for such a long time, and I really missed going out and seeing people. And that says a lot because I'm very introvert, so I can go a long time without much contact. And in the first couple of months, I had a number of dates and I did the awkward speed dating in French as well. It was a slightly chaotic experience, but fun because I went there with 2 girlfriends. The dates I went on were mostly with men that I met in the dating apps, and they were actually nice and serious guys, with a few exceptions, but I wasn't discouraged. I was actually really enjoying going out again, not only on dates, but just to have a social life again. And I was in this kind of mindset thinking, I know I might meet someone interesting soon. It can happen anytime, but I'm not in a hurry. And if I don't meet him right now, I'm still gonna make sure to have fun. There's so many ways to enjoy life, and I know that the right man will join me sooner or later. I also just felt great about myself. I felt confident. I had a desire to meet people and interact with them in general, and I didn't worry so much about what they would think about me. So, this was the energy I was in when I went to a gallery to see an exhibition one Saturday afternoon with the Expat Association. And there was a guy I had already met 5 or 6 times before. We had talked briefly, and I found him to be very interesting. He had some cool and original ideas, and I was fascinated by him. But I didn't sense that there was more than a friendly kind of vibe between us. Then, after the exhibition, we all went to a cafe, and I decided that now I wanted to get to know him a bit more, so I made sure to sit next to him. And there was a really good and fun energy between us. We talked a lot, and he asked a lot of questions. He made me laugh. And then he asked if I wanted to go and have dinner somewhere. So the 2 of us went to a cozy little restaurant and continued our evening. And although I sometimes struggle with finding the words in French, there was a connection. He was an entrepreneur as well, and he seemed very open-minded and curious and with an untraditional way of thinking, and we clearly had the same kind of humor. I had a great time that evening, and we were among the last people to leave the restaurant. Then in the following days, we had some email and WhatsApp exchanges, and a few days later he invited me for lunch. And then the week after that, he invited me to go and see a dance show. And this was all really exciting and fun. But at this point, I didn't know for sure if I was a new female friend or if we were dating. This can be difficult to say when you meet someone outside of a dating context. But I kept reminding myself of my new philosophy to not push for answers or not try to force anything. Just be in the flow and enjoy it. Which I did. Every time he invited me out, it was so well organized. He bought the tickets, he told me exactly where to meet and at what time, and he followed me home. He had so many ideas of where to go and places to see in Paris, and we saw new exhibitions and tried new restaurants, and he showed me streets and places that I didn't know about yet. So we had a number of dates like this, and every time we met, I noticed we had interesting discussions. He asked me really good questions, and he remembered everything I had told him earlier. And I just felt so incredibly good in his company and being myself around him, and I didn't feel any need to try to impress him or be in a certain way. Things just seemed to flow very naturally when we were together, and then one day, I was of course no longer in doubt if we were dating. So this was the beginning of a new love adventure that didn't look like anything I had in the past. It wasn't a typical scenario. We didn't jump into it in a split second. He showed me his interest over a longer time, and he showed me he wanted to grow a deeper connection with me. So if I was to say what I did differently and how do I think it could have looked if I didn't make this shift, here's what I would say. I got really comfortable just being my authentic self all the way from I started dating. Not worry about others, just remind myself that I had to be me in order to attract the right person. And this paid off. My partner matches my personality so well and he gets me, and I feel that he appreciates what makes me different. So if I didn't do this work, I'm not sure we would have connected that well. I would have been less relaxed and maybe trying to impress him or just hide the parts of me that I felt was a bit different. And it's interesting to notice that we did already meet 5 times over a period of 6 months, and it wasn't like we never talked before. There was just something that clicked that evening, and I believe it was a combination of me shifting my energy and both of us having an openness to connect at that specific time. Secondly, I paid attention to not try to take charge and push things in a certain direction, but instead just be more in the flow and enjoy every minute we were together. Which, by the way, feels so much better than trying to control. Here, the old me would have been more impatient, wanting to move forward faster and take lead and maybe not allow things to flow naturally. Looking back, I feel that I met him really fast, and it's true, it was fast because it was less than 2 months after going back into dating, but I actually managed to meet 13 men again. Yes, I was still tracking on my phone, so my partner, he was number 27. Getting myself out there on dates made me feel abundant in the sense that I knew I was going to meet a man one way or the other. I knew I could always go back on the apps, so even if I didn't meet him on a dating app, I believe the apps played an important role in the background. And if I hadn't done that, I might have been way too attached and hyper-focused. I was also in the mindset of enjoying life and not being in a hurry, creating my own fun experiences, going out and meeting new people, not just in dating. And this was important because it also made me feel abundant. And then finally, having a clear idea of what I was looking for, that was also a big difference between new and old me. Looking back on my reflections on what kind of partner I would like to attract, I would say he fits my criteria so well, it's almost scary. I still get amazed by the man he is, his curiosity for life, his energy. He is definitely not a couch potato. He is very adventurous. He keeps surprising me with his original ideas, and we're having so much fun. He is the most loving, affectionate, and generous man I know. And he always does what he says he will do. I don't think I know anyone that reliable. And also, he often gets me and sees me, even if I think he doesn't. I feel deeply connected and loved, and I can't wait to experience everything that we're going to do together. Now, if you're still listening here all the way at the end, I'm guessing it's because there's something calling in you. You want to have love in your life too, and this is possible for you too. It's not too late. You are not too old, and your story is not too complicated. You just need someone to guide you and help you see the patterns that are not serving you so you can shift them. So if you want to shortcut your journey to attract meaningful and connected love, then why don't you book a call with me? It's totally free. There's no obligation to sign up. We just talk for 45 minutes and you get a feeling if this is something for you. And if it is, then it's fine and we will start working already the week after. And if it's not, then it's fine too, because then at least you have clarity. So go find the link in the show notes and book a call and let's do this. Thank you for listening and have an amazing week. If you like what you're hearing on this podcast and you want to get support from a coach on your love journey, I invite you to book a free consult call with me. You will find the link in the show notes. And also, don't forget to subscribe, and I would love it if you would rate and review this podcast, and then you'll also help other women find it.